So when we left off, the foreman was going around the table, and the 11 jurors who had voted guilty, were explaining how they arrived at that answer. Um, right? So he had talked to 3, he had talked to 4, he had talked to 5, and it had gotten all the way around to 8, right? Our protagonist. So it was 8's turn. Here we go. It's your turn. All right. I had a peculiar feeling about this trial. Somehow I felt that the defense counsel never really conducted a thorough cross examination. Too many questions were left unasked. While it doesn't change my opinion about the guilt of the kid, still, I agree with you that the defense counsel was bad. So, crosses back to table and sits. This is a point. What about facts? So many questions were never answered. 3, he's now annoyed. What about the questions that were answered? For instance, let's talk about that cute little switch knife. You know, the one that fine, upright kid admitted buying? All right, let's talk about it. Let's get it in here and look at it. I'd like to see it again, Mr. Foreman. The foreman looks at him questioningly and then gets up and goes to the door. During the following dialogue, the foreman knocks. The guard unlocks the door and comes in left, and the foreman whispers to him. The guard nods and leaves, locking the door. The foreman returns to his seat. We all know what it looks like. I don't see why we have to look at it again. To 4. What do you think? The gentleman has a right to see exhibits and evidence. Shrugging. He's not really buying it. Okay with me. To 8. This knife is a pretty strong piece of evidence, don't you agree? I do. Now, let's get the sequence of events right as they relate to the switch knife. The boy admits going out of his house at 8 o'clock after being slapped by his father. Or punched. Gets up and begins to pace at the right part of the stage, moving down right to upright and back again. So 4 is kind of walking around, pacing. He went to a neighborhood store and bought a switch knife. The storekeeper was arrested the following day when he admitted selling it to the boy. I think everyone agrees that it's an unusual knife. Pretty hard to forget something like that. The storekeeper identified the knife and said it was the only one of its kind he had in stock. Why did the boy get it? Sarcastically. As a present for a friend of his, he says. 4. Pausing in his pacing. Am I right so far? Right? You bet he's right. To everyone. Now listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. So 3 is agreeing with 4. 4. Standing at the right side of the stage. Next, the boy claims that on the way home the knife must have fallen through a hole in his coat pocket, that he never saw it again. Now there's a story, gentlemen. You know what actually happened? The boy took the knife home and a few hours later stabbed his father with it and even remembered to wipe off the fingerprints. The door left opens and the guard walks in with an oddly designed knife with a tag on it. 4 crosses the left side and takes the knife from the guard. The guard goes out left, closing and locking the door. 4. At the left center, holding up the knife. So now 4 is holding up the knife. That's the piece of evidence. Everyone connected with the case identified this knife. Now, are you trying to tell me that someone picked it up off the street and went up to the boy's house and stabbed his father with it just to be amusing? No, I'm saying that it's possible that the boy lost the knife and that someone else stabbed his father with a similar knife. It's possible. 4. Flips the knife open and jams it into the wall just downstage of the door left. 4. Standing back to allow others to see the knife. Take a look at the knife. It's a very strange knife. I've never seen one like it before in my life. Neither had the storekeeper who sold it to him. 8. Reaches casually into his pocket and withdraws an object. No one notices him. He stands up. Aren't you trying to make us accept a pretty incredible coincidence? Now 8, moving toward 4. I'm not trying to make anyone accept it. I'm just saying it's possible. Now 3 is getting angry. He rises out of his chair and he's shouting, "And I'm saying it's not possible." 8 swiftly flicks open blade of a switch knife. So 8 now he has a knife and he flicks it open. He jams it into the wall next to the first knife and steps back. They are exactly alike. There are several gasps and everyone stares at the knife. There is a long silence. 3 continues, slowly, amazed. What are you trying to do? 10, loudly. Yeah, what is this? What do you think you are? Who do you think you are? A flow of ad-lib conversation bursts forth. So now everybody's out of sorts because 8 had a similar knife in his pocket and he took it out and put it next to the other one. 5. Look at it. It's the same knife. Quiet. Let's be quiet. Jurors, quiet down. 3 sits again. Where did you get it? I got it in a little junk shop around the corner from the boy's house. It cost $2. Now listen to me, turning to him, to number 3. I'm listening. You pulled a real smart trick here, but you proved absolutely zero. Maybe there are 10 knives like that. So what? Maybe there are. The boy lied and you know it. 8, crossing back to his seat and sitting down. And maybe he didn't lie. Maybe he did lose the knife. And maybe he did go to the movies. Maybe the reason the cashier didn't see him was because he sneaked into the movies. And maybe he was ashamed to say so. He looks around. Is there anybody here who didn't sneak into the movies once or twice when they were young? There is a long silence. I didn't. Really? Not even once? We didn't have movies. Remember, 11 is the foreigner. Oh, crosses back to his place and sits. 8. Maybe he did go to the movies. Maybe he didn't. And he may have lied. To 10. Do you think he lied? Violently. Now that's a stupid question. Sure, he lied. To 4. Do you think he lied? You don't have to ask me that. You know my answer. He lied. To 5. Do you think he lied? 5 can't answer immediately. He looks around nervously. I don't know. Now wait a second. What are you, the guy's lawyer? Listen, there are still 11 of us who think he's guilty. You're alone. Who do you think you're going to What do you think you're going to accomplish? If you want to be stubborn and hang this jury, he'll be tried again and found guilty, sure as he's born. You're probably right. So what are you going to do about it? We can be here all night. It's only one night. A man may die. Oh, wow. Now, come on. To 9. Well, yes, that's true. I think we ought to get on with it now. Right, let's get going here. To 3. How do you like this guy? 3 shrugs and turns to 8. Well, what do you say? You're the one holding up the show. to 8. Obviously, you don't think the boy is guilty. I have a doubt in my mind. So that's that reasonable doubt, right? 8 has a reasonable doubt here in his mind as to the boy, the defendant, being guilty. But you haven't really presented anything to us that makes it possible for us to understand your doubt. There's the old man downstairs. He heard it. He heard the kids shriek it out. The woman across the L tracks, she saw it. We know he bought a switch knife that night, and we don't know where he really was. At the movies? Earlier that night, the kid and his father did have a fight. He's been a violent kid all the way. And while that doesn't prove anything, still, standing now. 8 is standing up. I've got a proposition to make. 5 stands and puts his hands on back of his chair. Several jurors glare at number 5. He sinks his head down a bit and then sits down. I want to call for a vote. I want you 11 men to vote by secret ballot. I'll abstain, meaning he won't participate. If there are still 11 votes for guilty, I won't stand alone. We'll take in a guilty verdict right now. Okay, let's do it. That sounds fair. Is everyone agreed? I certainly am. Let's roll it. 11 slowly. Perhaps this is best. 8 walks over to the window and stands there for a moment, looking out, then turns as the foreman passes ballot slips down the table to all of them. They're passing out the ballots for the secret ballot for voting for the 11 that voted guilty. 8 tenses as jurors begin to write. Then folded ballots are passed back to the foreman. He flips through folded ballots, counts them to be sure he has 11, and then he begins to open them, reading the verdict each time. Guilty, 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 guilty. That's 6, please. Fumbles with one ballot. 6 guilty, 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 guilty. Pauses for a moment at the 10th ballot and then reads, not guilty. 3 slams his hand down hard on the table. 8 starts for the table as the foreman reads the final ballot. Guilty. Angrily. How do you like that? Standing, snarling. Who was it? I think we have a right to know. He looks about and no one moves. So that's the end of Act 1. All right. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I'm going to have a couple questions for you to answer about these last couple pages here. Keeping in mind, what 8 did and his proposition and what the second voting was what happened with the second vote. So keep all those details in mind. And I hope this is working pretty good for you. Let me know if there's something I can do to be a little bit better next time as we go forward into Act 2.